Lily Parker was 27 when she lost everything. Her parents were gone. The man she loved betrayed her. And with only $12,000 left, she bought an overgrown house, hidden beneath vines, at the end of a forgotten road. The house had been empty for 20 years. Its windows were sealed shut, and hidden inside was a secret that didn't just change Lily's life. It finally answered a mystery that had haunted an entire town. For decades, Lily thought she was buying a second chance. She never imagined she was stepping into a story that had been waiting for someone exactly like her. Her name was Lily Parker, and at 27 years old, she had already lost almost everything. She lost her parents when she was 12, a rainy highway, a late-night phone call, and just like that, the world she knew disappeared. No brothers, no sisters, no grandparents waiting for her. No one. Lily grew up in foster homes, carrying her life from one room to another in a single suitcase. People always told her she was strong. What they never told her was how lonely strength could be. Still, she believed in love, believed that if she worked hard enough, trusted enough, hoped enough, life would eventually become gentle. But life had other plans. The man she loved disappeared with every dollar she'd spent 10 years saving. 2 weeks later, the company she'd worked for went bankrupt. In less than a month, Lily lost her savings, lost her job, lost the future she'd spent years building, and somewhere along the way, she almost lost herself. Some nights, she sat alone in the dark apartment she could no longer afford, not crying, not praying, just staring at the wall and wondering how many disappointments a heart can survive before it forgets how to hope. Then, she found the house at the end of a forgotten road outside Cedar Hollow, covered in vines so thick they swallowed the walls, dark windows hidden behind twisted branches, a rusted iron gate hanging crooked in the wind. It didn't look abandoned. It looked forgotten. No one had lived there in over 20 years. Not because no one wanted to. Because no one stayed. The price was $12,000. Lily stared at the listing again and again. It had to be a mistake. But it wasn't. When she met the realtor, an old man with tired eyes, he handed her the key and said only one thing. "Don't ask why it's so cheap." Then he looked away. Lily should have walked. Anyone would have. A lonely house, a town full of silence, and a feeling that something inside those walls had been waiting a very long time. But when you've lost everything, fear changes. You are no longer afraid of failure. You are no longer afraid of heartbreak. You become afraid that life will never give you another chance to begin again. Lily had $15,000 left. She could rent a tiny apartment, or she could gamble on hope. So she bought the house, the last thing she owned in the world, for the first thing that had made her feel hope in years. Standing at the rusted gate for the first time, Lily rested her hand on her chest. The vines swayed softly. The windows watched in silence. And, for a brief moment, she felt something she couldn't explain. Not fear, not danger. Recognition. Because abandoned things have a strange way of recognizing each other. Lily Parker didn't know it yet. But behind those walls wasn't just a mystery. It was a promise. One left unfinished decades ago. One that had been waiting. For someone exactly like her. The first night in the house, Lily Parker barely slept. Not because she was afraid. At least, that's what she kept telling herself. The bedroom was small, tucked beneath a slanted ceiling. The wallpaper had faded into a soft yellow that might have been cheerful once. The bed creaked whenever she moved, and the wind outside whispered through the vines wrapped around the house. It should have felt lonely, but somehow it didn't. It felt like being in a church after everyone had gone home. Quiet, heavy, as if something important had happened there long ago. Lily lay awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, she wasn't worried about rent, or bills, or checking her bank account. She had a house, a strange one, an old one, but hers, and that thought alone was enough to bring tears to her eyes. Because when you've spent your whole life belonging nowhere, owning something feels almost unbelievable. She cried quietly that night. Not from sadness, from relief. The next morning, sunlight slipped carefully through the windows. Not boldly, not brightly, as if even the sun wasn't sure it was welcome there. Lily made coffee in the tiny kitchen and walked outside. The yard was worse than she'd imagined. Wild bushes, broken stone paths, and vines everywhere. They crawled across the walls like veins, twisting around shutters, covering bricks, swallowing corners of the house whole. Lily laughed softly to herself. "Well," she said, "I guess it's just you and me." And for the first time in years, she felt excited. For the next several days, she worked from sunrise until dusk, cutting vines, dragging branches, sweeping years of neglect into piles. Her hands blistered, her shoulders ached, but she didn't care. Each branch she cleared felt like reclaiming something, not just the house, herself. Then, on the fourth day, she found the first window, or rather, where a window should have been. At first, she thought the vines were playing tricks on her. The outline was faint, almost invisible, but as she cut away more branches, her stomach tightened. It was unmistakable, a perfect rectangle, the exact shape of a window, except there was no glass, no frame, only bricks, neat, even, deliberate. Someone had sealed it shut. Lily stepped back. Her heart beat a little faster. Why would anyone do that? She ran her fingers over the bricks. They felt newer than the wall around them. Cleaner. Almost. Protected. A chill ran down her spine. "It's an old house," she whispered. "People do strange renovations." She laughed nervously, then kept working. But an hour later, she found another one. And then, another 3 windows, all bricked up, all facing the backyard, away from the road, away from curious eyes. Lily stopped cutting. The yard suddenly felt colder. The birds had gone quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. That night, she drove into Cedar Hollow. The town diner was nearly empty. An elderly waitress poured her coffee. Lily smiled. "Can I ask you something?" The woman nodded. "The house on Willow Road." The waitress froze. Just for a second, but Lily saw it. Saw the smile disappear. Saw her eyes lower to the table. "You bought that place." Lily nodded. The woman sighed. "Honey," she said softly, "I wish you hadn't." Lily waited, but the woman only shook her head. "No one talks about it." Another pause. Then, "Because strange things happened there." "What kind of things?" The woman looked toward the window, as if afraid someone might hear. "People used to say the house was helping women. Women running from bad marriages. Women hiding. They came in the night and left before sunrise." Lily frowned. "That sounds good." It was. the waitress said. At first, then her face changed, older somehow, sadder. But after Mr. Whitmore died, she whispered, people stopped leaving. A cold shiver ran through Lily. What do you mean? The woman shook her head. I don't know. No one knows. But one by one, the women disappeared. The police came, found nothing. Eventually, people stopped asking. The waitress leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. But every few years, someone buys that house. Lily's fingers tightened around her coffee mug, and the woman looked directly into her eyes. They never stay. Lily laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. The woman didn't laugh back. Maybe, she said. But I know this. She pointed toward Lily. If you hear something, don't ignore it. The drive home felt longer, the road darker, the trees closer. Lily told herself the woman was just telling stories. Small towns loved stories. Ghost stories. Tragedies. Mysteries. Still, when she pulled into the driveway, her chest tightened. The house stood silently beneath the moon. The vines moved in the breeze, like fingers, slowly, patiently. And then, Lily saw something. Upstairs, the second floor, behind one of the dark windows. A light, not bright, just a faint glow, like a lamp switched on. She stopped breathing. Impossible. There was no electricity upstairs. She'd checked. Twice. The light flickered. Once. Twice. Then disappeared. Lily stood frozen at the gate, staring, waiting, telling herself she'd imagined it. Then, from somewhere deep inside the house, she heard it. Knock. A pause. Knock. Knock. 3 soft taps. Not loud. Not threatening, but deliberate and unmistakably coming from behind the wall. Lily didn't move. The cold night air suddenly felt sharp in her lungs. The house fell silent again. But, standing there beneath the moonlight, with her heart pounding so hard it hurt, Lily Parker realized something. She hadn't bought a haunted house. Somehow, that would have been easier, because what frightened her most was the feeling that someone, long ago, had been trying desperately to keep something hidden, and somehow, after all these years, it was trying to be found. Lily Parker didn't sleep much after that night. The 3 knocks replayed in her mind over and over. Not loud, not angry, just patient, as if something behind those walls had waited a very long time to be heard. The next morning, she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it. Almost. But once a question takes root in your heart, it grows. And Lily had spent her whole life ignoring her instincts. She wasn't going to do that anymore. She started measuring. It seemed silly at first. A tape measure, a notepad, the exterior walls, the interior rooms, living room, hallway, kitchen, again and again. Every number matched, until it didn't. The back hallway was shorter on the inside. Not by much, maybe 4 feet, 5 at most. But enough. Enough to make her stand perfectly still. Enough to make her heart beat a little faster. Lily measured again. Then a 3rd time. The numbers didn't lie. There was space inside the house. That didn't exist. Or, rather, space that wasn't supposed to exist. She stood in the hallway staring at the wall. An ordinary wall. A painted cream. No windows. No doors. Nothing unusual. Yet suddenly, It was all she could think about. That evening, she drove into town. The hardware store owner raised an eyebrow when she bought a hammer, pry bar, and flashlight. "Big renovation?" he asked. Lily smiled nervously. "Something like that." But all night she stared at those tools, sitting beside the couch, waiting. By morning, curiosity won. The wall felt colder than the others. Lily noticed that immediately. She pressed her palm against it. Cold, almost unnaturally so. She knocked gently. Thunk. Solid. A few inches over. Thunk. And then hollow. Her breath caught. She knocked again. Hollow. A strange feeling spread through her chest. Fear. Excitement. Dread. The kind of feeling you get standing at the edge of something life-changing. Because deep down, you already know. Once you see the truth, you can't go back. The first strike of the hammer echoed through the house. Dust fell. The second cracked the drywall. The third punched a hole through. And from inside, cool air rushed out. Old air. Air that hadn't moved in years. Lily stepped back, her hands shaking. There was a space behind the wall. A real one. Narrow. Hidden. Her flashlight beam swept across wooden shelves. Boxes. And something else. Something wrapped carefully in cloth. The room wasn't abandoned. It had been preserved. Lily crawled inside. Dust floated in the beam of her flashlight. The air smelled of paper, old wood, and something faintly floral, like perfume lingering long after someone has gone. On the shelves sat dozens of notebooks, neatly arranged. Beside them were folders tied with faded ribbons, cassette tapes, photographs, everything organized, everything loved. Lily picked up the nearest notebook. The cover was worn smooth. Inside, the handwriting was beautiful, steady, careful. The first page read, "Welcome. If you're reading this, it means you are safe." Lily frowned. She turned the page. March 17th. Sarah arrived tonight. Broken wrist. Bruised ribs. Terrified. Slept 12 hours. Cried after breakfast. Will stay as long as she needs. April 2nd. Emily is smiling again. First time in weeks. May 19th. Claire says she finally feels safe enough to sleep. Lily blinked. Page after page. Women. Different names. Different stories. But always the same pattern. Escaping. Hiding. Healing. Tears stung Lily's eyes, because suddenly, the house felt different. Not sinister, not cursed. It had been a sanctuary. She opened another notebook, and another. The entries continued. Years and years. A man named Arthur Whitmore had owned the house. A retired carpenter. Vidover. No children. He had secretly built hidden rooms inside the house. Safe rooms. Places for women fleeing abusive husbands. Places no one would think to look. Lily smiled through tears. Of course. Of course the house felt sad. It wasn't hiding evil. It was hiding pain. And somehow, that made her love it even more. She kept reading. Then, the handwriting changed. The neat letters disappeared. The pages became shorter. A colder. Arthur passed peacefully. House transferred. A temporary caretaker assigned. Lily frowned. The next pages felt different. Uneasy. July 8th. Megan arrived. July 12th. Megan upset caretaker. Privileges removed. July 16th. Megan remains downstairs. Lily sat up. Her chest tightened. What downstairs? She flipped pages faster. August 3rd. No outside contact. September 10th. Subject resistant. Subject. Not guest. Not resident. Subject. Lily felt her stomach twist. The warmth she'd felt moments ago vanished. The next pages were worse. Isolation effective. No windows necessary. Compliance improving. Lily's hands began to shake. What had happened here? She opened the folders. Photographs spilled out. Women smiling in gardens. Women baking. Women holding cups of tea. Then, later photographs. Faces thinner. Eyes empty. Expressions frightened. Lily pressed a hand over her mouth. This wasn't rescue anymore. It was imprisonment. The hidden rooms. The sealed windows. The isolation. Someone had taken Arthur Whitmore's dream and twisted it into something monstrous. Her breathing grew shallow. Then she saw it. At the back of the hidden room. Another wall. Smaller. Plain. Almost invisible. But scratched into the paint were lines. 1, 2, 10, 50, hundreds. Tallies. Lily's blood ran cold. She touched them gently. The grooves were deep, cut with desperation. Someone had counted days here. Weeks, months, maybe years. Her flashlight trembled. Then she saw something else. Words. Faint, almost erased. Please. Don't forget me. Lily staggered backward. Tears rushed to her eyes. Not from fear, from heartbreak. Because suddenly, she wasn't standing in a secret room. She was standing inside someone else's suffering. Someone who had hoped, prayed, begged that one day someone would find this place. Someone exactly like her. Lily slid to the floor, crying openly now. All her life, she thought being abandoned was the worst thing that could happen. But these women had been abandoned, while the world kept spinning outside, and no one came. No one. Until now. Lily looked around the hidden room. The notebooks, the photographs, the forgotten voices. And for the first time since buying the house, she wasn't afraid of what she might discover next. She was afraid of what would happen if she kept silent, because the house hadn't been waiting for rescue. It had been waiting for someone brave enough to tell its story. Lily Parker sat in her car for nearly an hour. The box of notebooks rested on the passenger seat. Beside it, the photographs, the cassette tapes, the folders tied with faded ribbons, and one small note that she couldn't stop thinking about. Please, don't forget me. The words had followed her out of the hidden room, followed her down the hallway, followed her into the cold morning air, because Lily knew exactly what it felt like, to be forgotten. She stared through the windshield at the Cedar Hollow Police Department, a modest brick building, an American flag swaying lazily in the breeze. Nothing remarkable. And yet, walking through those doors felt harder than finding the secret room, because once she handed over that box, the story wouldn't belong to her anymore. Lily tightened her grip on the steering wheel, then whispered something she'd never said aloud before. I'm scared. The words surprised her, not because they weren't true, because she'd spent her whole life pretending she wasn't. Finally, she picked up the box and walked inside. At first, the officer at the front desk listened politely, then cautiously, then very carefully. A hidden room, old journals, missing women. It sounded impossible, until Lily placed the evidence on the table. One notebook, then another, Then the photographs. The officer stopped writing. He called someone else. Then another. Within an hour, the room was full. Lily answered every question. How she found the house, the bricked windows, the measurements that didn't match, the hidden room, the tally marks scratched into the wall. At some point, she stopped shaking, because the truth has a strange power. Once spoken aloud, it becomes easier to carry. A detective named Samuel Hayes stayed long after everyone else left. Mid-60s, silver hair, gentle eyes, the kind of man who'd seen too much sadness to waste words. He flipped through the journals slowly, carefully. Then he removed his glasses and sighed. I've worked missing persons for 30 years. I paused, and I think, his voice cracked slightly, I think some families have been waiting a very long time for this. Lily looked down, suddenly unable to breathe, because she'd been so focused on the mystery. She'd forgotten something. Every name in those notebooks belonged to someone, someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone who had once promised they'd be home by dinner. And somewhere, someone had spent years hoping. Lily closed her eyes. She knew that feeling. Hope. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. The investigation lasted months. Police cars lined Willow Road. Reporters appeared. Specialists combed through every inch of the house. The hidden rooms. The sealed walls. The buried records. More names surfaced. Old missing persons reports. Women who had vanished decades earlier. Cases people assumed would never be solved. Some families got answers. Some got heartbreak. Some got both. Lily tried not to watch the news. But sometimes, she couldn't help herself. One evening, she saw an elderly woman standing outside the courthouse, holding a faded photograph, crying. My sister disappeared 32 years ago, the woman said. We thought she abandoned us. Her voice broke. But she didn't. Lily switched off the television and cried harder than she had in years, because all her life, she believed being abandoned was the worst pain imaginable. Now she understood something worse. Believing someone abandoned you when they never had the chance to come home. That realization changed her. Quietly, completely. For years, Lily had seen herself as unlucky, a victim of bad timing, bad luck, bad people, the orphan, the girl left behind, the woman who trusted the wrong man. She carried those identities like stones in her pockets, heavy, permanent. But standing outside that house, watching investigators carry out boxes of evidence, she felt something shift, because for the first time in her life, she wasn't the one waiting to be saved. She was the reason others finally had answers. That thought terrified her and healed her. At the same time, Detective Hayes found her sitting on the curb one afternoon, watching the sunset paint the house gold. You okay? He asked. Lily smiled, a sad smile. I don't know. He nodded, as if he'd expected that answer. Then he said something she'd remember forever. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for someone to rescue them. He looked toward the house, and some people, he smiled softly, become the rescue without realizing it. Lily lowered her head, because she had spent years believing she was broken, too lonely, too unlucky, too damaged. But maybe, just maybe, everything she'd endured had taught her something important. How to recognize pain, how to notice silence, how to hear the cry for help hidden beneath ordinary things. Maybe her suffering hadn't destroyed her. Maybe it had prepared her. That night, she returned to her small motel room, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at herself in the mirror. The same brown eyes, the same tired smile, the same woman, but not the same story. For the first time, Lily Parker didn't see an orphan, didn't see a victim, didn't see a woman abandoned by life. She saw someone else, someone who had walked into darkness and chosen not to look away, someone who had been hurt and still cared about strangers, someone brave, even if she wasn't ready to admit it yet. Tears filled her eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of understanding. Because there are people born into this world needing to be rescued. And then, there are people whose broken hearts teach them how to rescue others. Lily had spent 27 years believing she was the first kind. Only now, standing in the ruins of a forgotten house, did she begin to understand. She had always been the second. Lily Parker never expected the story to become public. She certainly never expected it to become her story. But that's the strange thing about truth. Once it comes into the light, it rarely belongs to one person anymore. The first article appeared 3 months after the investigation began. A local newspaper. A small headline, "Young woman discovers hidden rooms in abandoned house." Lily almost didn't read it. She hated having her picture taken, hated the thought of strangers knowing her past. But Detective Hayes insisted. "People need stories like this," he told her. Lily shook her head. "No." She smiled awkwardly. "They need stories about brave people." Hayes laughed softly. "You still don't know who you are, do you?" The article spread, first through Cedar Hollow, then neighboring towns, then social media. Soon, people started writing. The first letter arrived on a Tuesday. A handwritten envelope. No return address. Lily almost threw it away. Instead, she opened it. "Dear Lily, I was 24 when I left my husband. He broke my nose twice, my ribs once, my confidence every single day. I slept in my car with my daughter for 6 weeks. When I read about you, I cried, because for the first time in years, I felt less alone." Lily read the letter twice, then a third time. She folded it carefully and cried. More letters followed. A widow in Ohio, a grandmother in Arizona, a woman in Texas who had escaped an abusive marriage after 40 years. Some letters were short. "Thank you." Some were pages long. Stories no one else had ever heard. One woman wrote, "I thought losing everything made me weak. Then I saw you." Lily stopped reading. The words blurred. She pressed the paper to her chest and cried so hard her shoulders shook, because she still remembered that version of herself, the woman sitting alone in the dark, convinced her life was over, convinced suffering had ruined her. But maybe pain wasn't always destruction. Maybe, sometimes, pain was preparation. That thought terrified her, because if suffering had a purpose, then maybe all those lonely years hadn't been meaningless. Lily sat at her kitchen table long after midnight. The letters spread around her. Dozens of strangers, different ages, different lives, and yet, their heartbreak looked so familiar. For the first time, she understood something Arthur Whitmore must have understood. People don't just need shelter. They need to know. Their pain makes sense to someone. A few weeks later, a woman named Evelyn knocked on her door. Late 50s, nervous smile, eyes that looked permanently tired. She held one of the newspaper articles. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said. Her voice trembled. "I don't know where else to go. Lily invited her inside, made tea, listened, and Evelyn talked for 3 hours about the husband she'd hidden from, about bruises she'd explained away, about the fear, the shame, the loneliness. Lily barely said anything. She just listened. At the end, Evelyn wiped her tears and laughed softly. "I don't know why I told you all this." Lily smiled. "I do, because sometimes broken people don't need advice. They need proof. Proof that someone else survived that night." After Evelyn left, Lily sat alone in silence, thinking. All those years, she believed she was waiting for life to begin. But maybe life had been preparing her for this. The next morning, she called a local nonprofit, a small organization helping women and children escape abusive homes. The director, Martha Green, invited her in. "I don't have experience," Lily admitted. "I don't have a degree," Martha smiled. "Neither did I." She leaned forward. "But you've survived." She pointed gently toward Lily's chest. "And people trust scars more than credentials." Those words stayed with her. People trust scars more than credentials. Lily started volunteering, just a few hours a week, answering phones, serving meals, helping women fill out paperwork, simple things, but slowly, those simple things became sacred. She helped a young mother find an apartment, helped a frightened teenager enroll in school, sat beside women having panic attacks, held crying babies while exhausted mothers slept. Sometimes she cried with them, sometimes she laughed, and every night she drove home feeling something unfamiliar. Not happiness. Not exactly. Purpose. A quiet kind of joy. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that settles deep inside your bones. Months passed. One afternoon, Martha found Lily sorting donated clothes. "You know," she said, "people keep asking for you." Lily looked up. "What do you mean?" "They say," Martha smiled, "I want to talk to the woman from the house." Lily laughed. "I'm not special." Martha shook her head. "No." Then she gently touched Lily's hand. "You're something much more important." Lily frowned. "What?" Martha's eyes softened. "Your hope." Lily looked away immediately, because hope had always been something she searched for, not something she imagined becoming. But later that night, alone in her small apartment, she thought about it. The girl who lost her parents, the woman who lost her savings, the lonely soul who bought a forgotten house because she had nowhere else to go. All those versions of herself still existed, but they no longer defined her. For the first time in 27 years, Lily Parker wasn't asking, "Who will save me?" She was asking something else. "Who can I help next?" And somehow, that question healed her in ways she never thought possible. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't finding a safe place. It's becoming one. And Lily was only beginning to understand that this had been her purpose all along. Growth didn't come to Lily Parker all at once. It rarely does. Most people think healing feels like sunlight. Warm. Certain. Beautiful. But healing is often uncomfortable. Because once you've learned to see pain, you start seeing it everywhere. At first it was little things. A bruise someone explained too quickly. A woman who flinched when her phone rang. A little boy who never spoke above a whisper. Lily noticed. Always. Because pain recognizes pain. And once you've survived your own darkness, you develop an ear for silence. One afternoon, a woman named Hannah came to the shelter. 32. 2 children. a nervous smile that kept breaking apart. She told everyone she was fine, said she'd just had an argument with her husband, said she only needed a place for a few nights. But Lily noticed something. When Hannah sat down, she always chose the chair closest to the exit. When a man laughed loudly in the hallway, she jumped, and every time her phone buzzed, she stopped breathing for a second. Lily knew that feeling. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. It was survival. That evening, Lily found Hannah sitting alone outside, watching the sunset, pretending not to cry. "You don't have to tell me anything," Lily said gently. Hannah smiled. The kind of smile people wear when they're exhausted. "You know what's strange?" she whispered. Lily waited. "I don't miss him." A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. "I miss the woman I was before I met him." The words hit Lily harder than she expected, because for years, she'd missed the girl she might have been. The girl with parents. The girl who trusted easily. The girl who didn't expect to be left behind. Lily sat beside Hannah in silence. Sometimes. That's the greatest kindness you can offer. Not answers. Just company. Days later, Hannah left the shelter. She found an apartment, started over. But before leaving, she hugged Lily tightly. "You saved me." Lily shook her head. "No," she whispered. "You saved yourself." But Hannah smiled. "Maybe," she said. "But you reminded me I was worth saving." Lily stood there long after Hannah drove away, thinking, worth saving. Nobody had ever told her that. Not when she lost her parents. Not when she got cheated out of her savings. Not when she sat alone in that tiny apartment wondering if life was finished with her. She'd spent years believing survival was enough. Now, she wasn't so sure. That same week, Detective Hayes called. His voice sounded strange, hesitant. "Lily," he said, "we found something." Her stomach tightened. The investigation into Arthur Whitmore's house had officially closed months ago. The property had been condemned. Most of the evidence archived. "What is it?" she asked. Hayes sighed. "We found another house." Lily stopped breathing. "No. We thought the caretaker acted alone," Hayes said quietly. "But—" Another pause. "The layout is almost identical." Lily gripped the phone tighter. "What do you mean identical?" "Hidden rooms," Hayes replied. "Sealed windows, and—" His voice lowered, as someone was living there recently. A chill crawled up Lily's spine. The room around her suddenly felt smaller. "No," she whispered again, because Arthur Whitmore's house was supposed to be the end, a tragedy from the past, a wound finally healed. Not the beginning of something larger. Hayes continued. "We don't know if it's connected," which usually means we think it is. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, and for the first time in months, she felt afraid again. Not for herself, for the women she'd met, for the ones still hiding, still hurting, still waiting for someone to notice, because suddenly, the world seemed full of hidden rooms, not just in houses. Inside people, rooms where shame lived, rooms where grief sat quietly, rooms people bricked up because the pain was too much. Lily understood that better than anyone. She'd built those rooms herself, after her parents died, after being betrayed, after years of loneliness. But Arthur Whitmore taught her something. Safe places matter, and maybe that was her calling. Not to solve mysteries, not to become famous, but to help people open the doors they'd sealed shut. The next morning, Martha found Lily sitting alone in the shelter kitchen. Coffee untouched, eyes tired. "You look scared," Martha said. Lily smiled weakly. "I think I am." Martha nodded. "Good." Lily blinked. "What?" Martha sat beside her. "Fear means you still care." She squeezed Lily's hand. "The day you stop being afraid of other people's pain," she said softly, "is the day you stop being useful." Lily looked down, and suddenly, she thought about the house again. The vines, the hidden room, the words scratched into the wall. "Please don't forget me." She never would, because maybe that message hadn't been meant only for her. Maybe it was meant for all of us. A reminder that behind every smile, every closed door, every quiet person sitting alone, there might be a story waiting to be found. And Lily Parker, the orphan who once prayed for someone to save her, was finally beginning to understand something extraordinary. Sometimes, the people who survive the darkest nights aren't meant to forget them. They're meant to carry a lantern, so others can find their way home, and somewhere, in another forgotten house, another story was waiting. And this time, Lily had a feeling. It was waiting for her. The last time Lily Parker stood in front of the house, it looked smaller. Not because it had changed, but because she had. The vines still wrapped around the walls. The rusted gate still groaned in the wind. And the windows, or what remained of them, still stared out into the world like tired eyes. But the fear was gone. In its place was gratitude. A year earlier, Lily had walked through that gate carrying everything she owned in the trunk of her car. A broken heart, a nearly empty bank account, and the quiet belief that life had forgotten her. Now, she stood there surrounded by people, detectives, volunteers, women whose lives had changed because she had refused to look away. The house would be demolished the next morning. Too much damage, too much sorrow. Some places, they said, aren't meant to be saved. But Lily wasn't so sure, because walls are only walls, and houses aren't what make a place safe. People are. Detective Hayes walked toward her carrying a small cardboard box. Old, dusty. He looked strangely emotional. "We found this in the attic," he said softly. Lily frowned. The attic? Hayes nodded. There was a false ceiling. He smiled. Arthur Whitmore hid things everywhere. Lily laughed. The sound surprised her. She hadn't laughed much a year ago. Hayes handed her the box. Inside, wrapped carefully in yellowed cloth, was an old photograph. Lily picked it up gently. A man stood on the front porch. Tall, kind eyes. Work gloves in his hands. Arthur Whitmore. And beside him, holding tightly to his arm, was a little girl, no older than 8. Dark curls, bright smile. The kind of smile children wear before they learn how cruel the world can be. Lily stared at her. Something about the child felt familiar. Not her face, her expression, hopeful, as if she believed she was safe. Lily turned the photo over and froze. Written in faded blue ink were the words, "If you ever find this house, please make it a safe place again." For a moment, the world disappeared. Lily sat down on the porch steps, staring at the handwriting, reading it again and again. Then she cried, not quietly, not politely, the kind of crying that comes from somewhere old, somewhere you've kept locked away for years. Because suddenly, she understood. Arthur Whitmore hadn't built the house because he was brave. He built it because once, someone he loved needed saving. And maybe he couldn't save everyone. But he tried, for years, until his final breath. Lily pressed the photograph against her chest, tears slipping down her face. All her life, she thought losing everything had made her unlucky. The orphan girl, the abandoned girlfriend, the woman who bought a haunted house because she had nowhere else to go. But maybe that wasn't the story at all. Maybe every heartbreak had been teaching her something. How to recognize loneliness, how to sit beside grief, how to notice the people everyone else overlooks. Because healing isn't taught in books, it's taught by surviving. And Lily had survived. The house hadn't found her by accident. It had waited for someone who knew what abandonment felt like. Someone who wouldn't run when things became painful. Someone kind enough to continue a story she didn't begin. Lily looked up at the old house one last time. The afternoon sun filtered through the vines. Soft, golden, almost beautiful. And for the first time, she didn't see tragedy. She saw love, imperfect love, broken love, the kind of love that fails sometimes, the kind that loses battles, but keeps trying anyway. Arthur had tried, and now, so would she. The next morning, Lily didn't watch the demolition. Instead, she drove to the shelter. A little girl sat alone in the waiting room. Curly dark hair, maybe 8 years old, holding a stuffed rabbit, trying very hard not to cry. Lily stopped, 'cause suddenly she saw herself, and somehow she saw the little girl from the photograph too. The child Arthur once protected. The child he loved enough to build a refuge for. Lily knelt beside her. "Hey," she said softly. The little girl looked up, eyes full of fear. "Are you staying here too?" the girl asked. Lily smiled. Her eyes filled with tears. "No," she whispered. "I'm one of the people who helps make this place safe." The girl studied her for a moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. A tiny smile. Fragile. Hopeful. And in that moment, Lily felt something settle deep inside her heart. Peace. Not because her life had been easy. Not because the past stopped hurting, but because she finally understood. Some people are born needing rescue, and some people are shaped by pain, so they can become a refuge for others. Lily Parker had spent years searching for a home, only to discover that her greatest purpose was never finding one. It was becoming one. And perhaps that is the most beautiful ending of all, because sometimes the places that save us aren't places at all. They're people who refuse to let others suffer alone. Sometimes Lily still thinks about the house, the vines, the hidden room, and those words she found so many years ago, "Please make it a safe place again." She never forgot them, because for most of her life, Lily Parker believed home was a place, a family, a light waiting in the dark, but she never had those things. Until one day, after all the heartbreak, all the loneliness, and all the nights she thought life was over, she discovered something beautiful. Home was never waiting for her. She was the home. Not everyone changes the world in big ways. Sometimes, the world changes because one person decides to listen, to care, and to refuse to look away from someone else's pain. Lily once thought losing everything was the end. But maybe life breaks our hearts, not to destroy us, but to make room for something greater. Because there will always be places that hide darkness. But there will also be people, kind, ordinary people, who bring the light back. And sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't finding a home, it's becoming one. And maybe that's enough to change everything.